The Epic Tale of Joseph, from Dreamer to Prime Minister. Hey there! Today, we're going to dive into the epic tale of Joseph. This story is packed with dreams, drama, and powerful lessons that are still important today. So, get comfy and let's start this incredible journey together. Our story begins in the ancient land of Canaan. There lived a big family with 12 brothers, and their dad's name was Jacob, also known as Israel. Among these brothers was a young man named Joseph. Joseph was 17 years old and his dad's favorite son. To show his special love for Joseph, Jacob gave him a splendid coat of many colors. It was long, richly decorated, and absolutely stunning. Joseph loved his colorful coat, but his brothers were not happy about it. They were jealous and felt that their father loved Joseph more than them. This jealousy turned into hatred, especially because of Joseph's dreams. You see, Joseph was a dreamer. One night, he had a dream that was really out of this world. He dreamt that he and his brothers were tying up bundles of grain in the field. Suddenly, his bundle stood upright, and all his brothers' bundles gathered around and bowed down to it. When Joseph told his brothers about this dream, they were furious. "Do you think you're going to be our king?" they mocked. But that wasn't the only dream. Joseph had another one. This time, he dreamt that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. He told his father and brothers about this dream, and even his dad was puzzled. "What kind of dream is this?" Jacob wondered. "Will your mother and I and your brothers really come and bow down to you?" Joseph's brothers just grew more envious. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were grazing their flocks near Shechem. As Joseph approached, his brothers saw him from a distance and plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said. "Let's kill him and throw him into one of these pits. We'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But Reuben, the eldest brother, didn't want to hurt Joseph. He suggested they throw Joseph into a pit, but not kill him, hoping to rescue him later. When Joseph arrived, his brothers stripped him of his beautiful coat and threw him into an empty pit. While they were eating, a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passed by on their way to Egypt. Judah, another brother, suggested selling Joseph to the traders instead of harming him. The brothers agreed and sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Imagine being Joseph. One moment, he was his father's beloved son, and the next, he was a slave heading to a foreign land. But here's an important lesson. No matter where you are or what happens, always trust that God is with you. This unwavering faith is something we can all learn from Joseph. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Joseph worked hard, and God blessed everything he did. Potiphar noticed Joseph's exceptional skills and put him in charge of his entire household. Joseph managed everything so well that Potiphar didn't have to worry about anything except the food he ate. But Joseph's troubles weren't over yet. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph because he was handsome and well-built. She tried to seduce him, but Joseph refused, saying, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Day after day, she tried to convince him, but Joseph stood firm. One day, when no one else was around, Potiphar's wife grabbed Joseph's cloak and demanded that he sleep with her. Joseph ran out of the house, leaving his cloak behind. Enraged, she falsely accused him of trying to assault her. Potiphar was furious and had Joseph thrown into prison. Even in prison, God was with Joseph. The prison warden saw that Joseph was trustworthy and put him in charge of all the prisoners. Joseph continued to work diligently, and God continued to bless him. While Joseph was in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker were also imprisoned. They both had troubling dreams and were upset because they had no one to interpret them. Joseph noticed their distress and asked them about their dreams. The cupbearer told Joseph his dream first, and Joseph, with God's help, interpreted it. "In 3 days," Joseph said, "Pharaoh will restore you to your position." Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him and mention him to Pharaoh. The baker then shared his dream, and Joseph also interpreted it, but the news wasn't good. "In 3 days," Joseph said, "Pharaoh will execute you." Just as Joseph had said, in 3 days the cupbearer was restored to his position, and the baker was executed. Unfortunately, the cupbearer forgot about Joseph and did not mention him to Pharaoh. 2 years later, Pharaoh himself had 2 strange dreams. In one, he saw 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 thin cows. In the other, he saw 7 healthy ears of grain being swallowed by 7 thin, dried ears. None of Pharaoh's wise men could interpret the dreams. It was then that the cupbearer remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh about him. Pharaoh summoned Joseph from prison. Joseph shaved, changed his clothes, and was brought before Pharaoh. "I hear you can interpret dreams," Pharaoh said. Joseph replied, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams, and Joseph, with God's guidance, explained them. "The 2 dreams mean the same thing," Joseph said. "God is showing Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows and 7 good ears of grain represent 7 years of abundance. The 7 thin cows and 7 thin ears of grain represent 7 years of famine. The famine will be so severe that it will consume the land." Joseph continued, "Let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man to put in charge of the land of Egypt. Let him appoint commissioners to collect 1/5 of the harvest during the 7 years of abundance. They should gather all the food and store it in the cities under Pharaoh's control. This food will be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine." Pharaoh was so impressed with Joseph's wisdom that he said, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Pharaoh made Joseph the 2nd most powerful man in Egypt, giving him the title of Prime Minister. He gave Joseph his signet ring, fine robes, and a gold chain. Joseph was now in charge of preparing Egypt for the years of famine. Joseph traveled throughout Egypt, gathering and storing vast amounts of grain during the 7 years of abundance. He ensured that there would be enough food for the tough times ahead. When the 7 years of famine began, Egypt was ready, thanks to Joseph's wise planning. So, what can we learn from Joseph's incredible journey? Here are some key lessons. 1. Perseverance and faith. No matter how tough life gets, keep trusting in God and never give up. Joseph faced numerous hardships, but he remained faithful and diligent in his ways. 2. Integrity. Joseph refused to compromise his values, even when it would have been easy to give in. Standing firm in what you believe is always the right choice. 3. Forgiveness. Later in his story, which we'll explore in another session, Joseph forgave his brothers for their terrible actions. Holding on to anger only hurts us. Forgiveness brings healing. 4. Wisdom and planning. Joseph's ability to interpret dreams and his wise management saved an entire nation. Always seek wisdom and be prepared for the future. Thank you for joining me on this epic adventure through the story of Joseph. Remember, no matter where life takes you, stay true to your values, trust in God, and always be ready to lend a helping hand. Until next time, keep dreaming and believing in the amazing plans God has for you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll ensure you never miss out on any new and exciting adventures we share. Stay tuned for more engaging content.